Chapter 7. The old church loomed around them, its dilapidated walls whispering tales of a forgotten past. Faint light filtered through the stained glass, painting muted colors on the cracked stone floor. A haunting melody echoed faintly, like a choir of ghosts serenading the shadows. Asher stood at the forefront, his jaw tight and his posture rigid. His piercing gaze was fixed on the shadowy figure that hovered at the far end of the church. Lachlan, arms crossed over his chest, was by his side, exuding an air of skeptical defiance. Nearby, Elias mirrored Asher's intensity, his expression sharp with suspicion. In contrast, Mallory, Harper, and Jade, their faces pale and their breaths shallow. Mallory's hands trembled at her sides, her wide eyes betraying a mixture of fear and determination. Harper clasped her arms across her chest, trying to steady herself, while Jade's jaw dropped, her shock evident in her every move. The shadowy figure remained motionless, its presence an eerie contradiction of stillness and menace. "If you're here to scare us, it's not working," Asher barked, his voice slicing through the tension like a blade. "Who are you really?" The figure tilted its head slightly, its voice low and resonant as it replied, "I am the keeper of this place. I guard what remains." Mallory swallowed hard and stepped forward, her voice unsteady. "What happened to the book? The one with the runes?" The keeper's form seemed to sag, a faint ripple of exhaustion passing through it. "It is no longer here," it murmured, "taken by those who would use it unwisely." Harper's voice wavered as she asked, "Who took it?" The keeper's tone turned somber. "Those who do not heed the balance. The same ones who have set their eyes on all of you. On us." Jade exclaimed, her voice cracking with fear. "Why?" "Because," the keeper said, "you are the only ones left who can restore what they aim to destroy." Lachlan let out a humorless chuckle, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, perfect. No pressure, right?" Asher furrowed his brow, his mind racing. "How do we stop them?" he asked. The keeper's response was cryptic. "Trust your instincts, but beware, time is not on your side." Mallory frowned, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "That's not much to go on." The figure's outline flickered, its voice heavy with a weariness that seemed to stretch across centuries. "Your journey will demand more of you than you realize. It will guide you." Without another word, the keeper dissolved into the shadows, leaving the group in stunned silence. The oppressive atmosphere lightened slightly, but the weight of the encounter lingered. "That was unsettling," Harper muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Jade shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "What are we supposed to do now?" Mallory took a deep breath, determination hardening her features. "We start by figuring out who took the book. And why us?" Asher stepped closer, his expression softening as he looked at her. "We'll figure it out," he said firmly. Lachlan smirked, breaking the tension with a wry grin. "Great. Team save the world. No pressure at all." Harper glanced at the others, her unease evident. "I just hope we're ready for this," she murmured. The group exchanged uneasy glances, their resolve mingling with the fear coursing through their veins. Together, they knew there was no turning back. The uni-common room was filled with a palpable tension, an undercurrent of unease lingering among the group. They sat scattered across the room, the fatigue from the day's events etched into their expressions. Mallory broke the silence, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "I know we're all tired, but I can't shake the feeling that being alone tonight isn't safe." Asher sighed, folding his arms. "You're right. None of us should be alone." "Are we talking group sleepover vibes?" Lachlan asked, raising an eyebrow. Harper chuckled softly. "Careful, Lachlan. You sound way too excited about this." "Hey, I just want to make sure no one ends up on some ghost's target list," Lachlan shot back, grinning. "Plus, I'm great company." Jade rolled her eyes. If by great company you mean never shuts up, then sure. Elias laughed, nodding in agreement. Honestly, she's not wrong. Asher straightened up, his tone turning serious. Let's stay in pairs or groups tonight. Safer that way. Agreed, Mallory said. Her gaze swept over the group. But where? No offense, but some of your dorms look like tornado zones. Harper smirked. My room is spotless, thank you very much. Lachlan leaned back, feigning indignation. Mallory's just scared of my amazing sock collection. Scared? No. Traumatized? Possibly. Mallory shot back, eliciting a round of laughter. The humor was short-lived, though, as Jade's expression darkened. Jokes aside, this is serious. If something or someone is after us. Elias placed a reassuring hand on Jade's shoulder. Then sticking together is the best option. We'll take shifts if we need to. Asher nodded. All right. Harper, Lachlan, you two can take Harper's dorm. Don't worry, Harper quipped. I'll make sure Lachlan doesn't snore too loudly. And I'll make sure Harper doesn't hog all the blankets, Lachlan retorted with a wink. Mallory chuckled. Jade and Elias, you can take Jade's dorm. Asher and I will stay at mine. Asher gave a small, approving nod. Good plan. We'll regroup in the morning and figure out our next steps. Elias shifted uncomfortably, his voice subdued. Let's just hope nothing else happens tonight. The group's laughter faded as the weight of the situation settled over them again. They exchanged wary glances before heading off in pairs, doing their best to suppress the unease that clung to the air like a shadow. As the door clicked shut behind the last pair, silence descended on the common room, broken only by the faint echo of footsteps retreating into the night. The gentle strum of an acoustic melody played softly in the background as Harper and Lachlan settled into her dorm. The room had a warmth to it, with neatly arranged furniture and soft lighting that cast a cozy glow. Despite the day's tension, their usual banter brought a sense of normalcy. Lachlan leaned against the desk, arms crossed, a teasing smirk on his face. Okay, I have to say it, your room is suspiciously clean. Did you know I was coming over? Harper rolled her eyes, crossing her arms as she stood near the bed. Please. My room is always clean. Unlike your sock tornado. Lachlan chuckled, his laugh rich and warm. My socks are a vibe. You're just not cultured enough to appreciate them. Oh, if by culture you mean you can't tell which ones are clean or dirty, then sure. Harper shot back with a grin. Their laughter filled the room, cutting through the lingering unease of the night. Lachlan took a step closer, his tone softening, though the mischief in his eyes remained. Admit it, Harper. You'd miss me if I wasn't here to annoy you. Harper hesitated, the humor in her expression fading as a faint blush crept up her cheeks. You're not wrong. The air between them shifted, the playful banter giving way to something deeper. Harper glanced down, nervously rubbing her arm. Look, Lachlan. I don't know how to say this, but... She looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. I really like you. Lachlan's eyes widened in surprise, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face before he quickly masked it with humor. Wait, hold on. Are you saying you like me more than my socks? Harper laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Barely. They both laughed again, but this time it was softer, more intimate. Lachlan smiled, his voice gentle. Well, I guess I have no choice but to admit it. I like you too. For a moment, they stood there, the reality of their feelings settling between them. Harper bit her lip, her voice tinged with nervous excitement. So what happens now? A mischievous grin spread across Lachlan's face. Before Harper could respond, Lachlan closed the distance between them, pulling her into a playful embrace. She let out a surprised laugh, swatting at him lightly, but the sincerity in his gaze stopped her short. Then, Lachlan stepped back slightly, his expression turning serious. Actually, I want our first kiss to be special. He held out his hand, his tone filled with quiet determination. Come with me. Harper's heart raced as she placed her hand in his, allowing him to guide her out of the dorm and into the unknown, the promise of something extraordinary lingering in the air. The soft music faded as the door closed behind them, leaving only the faint echo of their laughter and the hope of what was to come. The rooftop garden of the student dorms was nothing short of enchanting. Strings of warm lights bordered the edges, their soft glow illuminating the lush greenery and casting a golden hue over the night. The gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze, which carried the delicate scent of blooming flowers. It was a haven, tucked away from the chaos of the world below. Harper stood near the edge, her arms resting lightly against the railing as she took in the view. Lachlan was behind her, his hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on her rather than the city skyline. Pretty incredible, isn't it? He said softly, his voice carrying an uncharacteristic sincerity. Harper glanced over her shoulder with a small smile. The view or me? Lachlan chuckled and stepped closer, the gravel crunching softly under his shoes. Both, he admitted, his tone lighter now. Harper turned fully to face him, her brow raised. Smooth. But I think you were about to say something romantic and swoon-worthy. Lachlan grinned, moving to stand in front of her. All right, how about this? You make me forget everything else in the world. Her lips parted in surprise, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. She glanced away briefly, only to meet his eyes again, her voice playful. Not bad. Keep going. Lachlan leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I'd rather just show you. The words hung in the air for a moment, weighty with unspoken emotions. Harper stepped forward, her heart racing as she reached for him. Their faces drew closer, and the world around them seemed to fade. Under the glowing lights and the vast, star-speckled sky, Harper and Lachlan shared their first kiss. It was tender yet filled with unspoken passion, a perfect moment in an imperfect world. As their lips parted, they lingered close, foreheads resting together, their breaths mingling in the cool night air. Neither spoke, but words weren't necessary. The rooftop garden bore silent witness to the blossoming of something rare and beautiful. Above, the stars twinkled as if in approval, and the rooftop lights continued to glow softly, illuminating a night they would never forget. The campus garden glowed softly under the moonlight, a quiet sanctuary in the heart of the bustling university. Strings of fairy lights wove through the trees, their delicate shimmer reflecting off the dew-kissed leaves. Mallory walked beside Asher, their footsteps slow and deliberate, as though each step anchored them further into the serene beauty of the night. It feels like the world has stopped, Mallory murmured, her voice barely louder than the rustling breeze. Just for us. Asher turned to her, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Maybe it has, he said thoughtfully. Or maybe we've just stopped noticing the chaos because of moments like this. Mallory smiled, warmth blooming in her chest. You're surprisingly poetic tonight. You bring it out of me, Asher replied, his tone tinged with playfulness. And you deserve poetry, Mallory. For a moment, silence fell between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, filled with the unspoken connection that seemed to grow stronger with every passing second. Finally, Asher cleared his throat and shifted on his feet. Can I ask you something? He said, his voice softer now. Of course. Dance with me, he said, his words catching Mallory off guard. Her eyes widened slightly before a laugh bubbled up from her chest. There's no music, Asher, she teased. He shrugged, his grin playful. Who needs music when we have the stars? Mallory's heart skipped a beat. She didn't need convincing. Taking his hand, she allowed him to lead her into an open space beneath the canopy of lights. As their fingers intertwined, The world seemed to fade into a soft hum of night, leaving only the two of them in a bubble of quiet intimacy. As they began to sway, Asher held her close, his arms steady but gentle. Mallory leaned into him, her head resting lightly against his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice almost lost in the stillness. "For what?" Asher asked, tilting his head to glance at her. "For making me feel safe," she said, her words heavy with meaning. He paused, his movement slowing. "You're welcome," he said sincerely. "But I think you're the one who makes everything feel right." Mallory's cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. There was no room for pretense in this moment. Only truth. The two swayed in silence under the stars, their breaths synchronized, their movements effortless. Asher's thoughts swirled. Holding Mallory felt like holding light itself, fragile, beautiful, and impossibly captivating. For the first time in days, a flicker of hope settled in his chest. When the dance came to a gentle end, Mallory pulled back slightly, her eyes meeting his. "Ready to head back?" Asher asked, his voice quiet but steady. "Only if we can keep moments like this," she replied, a soft giggle escaping her lips. Her laughter hung in the air, and Asher couldn't stop himself. Cupping her face in his hands, he leaned in, brushing his lips against hers. Mallory responded without hesitation, her arms winding around his neck as the kiss deepened. It was sweet and unhurried, a reflection of the emotions they had yet to fully voice. When they finally parted, Mallory's cheeks were flushed, and Asher's gaze was filled with a newfound softness. "You make everything feel whole," he murmured, his voice a low promise. As they began their walk back, side by side, the quiet strength of their bond lingered, unshakable even in the face of the unknown challenges ahead. Later that night, while Asher was in the shower, Mallory sat alone in her dorm room. The events of the week weighed heavily on her mind, a mix of supernatural horrors and the relentless grind of studies taking their toll. She took a deep breath, attempting to ground herself in the quiet stillness of the room. She moved to the bed, her steps slow and deliberate, and sat down with her legs crossed. The comforting hum of the night provided a backdrop to her thoughts. An hour earlier, she had made a quick call to her family. The familiar voices on the other end had lightened her mood, though only slightly. The lingering fear of the unknown still clung to her like a shadow. "Lucky I checked on them today," Mallory murmured to herself, her voice soft and reflective. She clasped her hands together and stared at the notepad on her desk, her thoughts drifting to the one connection that had started to feel real amidst the chaos. And Asher. Is this connection real? Or is it just the circumstances? She paused, her brow furrowed in doubt. Then, as if answering her own question, her lips curved into a faint smile. "No, it's real. I know it is." Even with this reassurance, insecurities began to creep in, threatening to unravel her fragile sense of calm. Seeking solace, she reached for her self-care journal, a well-worn companion that held her deepest thoughts and affirmations. With pen in hand, she opened the pages and began to write, her words flowing like a quiet stream. "Dear me, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Just take it one step at a time." As she wrote, Mallory allowed herself to revisit the affirmations she had penned before. Each one was a lifeline, a reminder of what truly mattered amidst the chaos of her life. Do more of what makes you healthily happy without waiting for hope to arrive. Treat yourself the way you treat your loved ones. Be a perfectionist in a healthy way, without it harming you and limiting your dreams. Choose love over fear, faith over fear, hope over fear. Happy things happen every day. Manifestation tip: live as if all your wishes have come true. Have healthy confidence but not egotistical. Even when you're sad, happy things happen every day. Trust your intuition. You are enough, Doing more of what makes you healthily happy just as you are will then compound and lead you to unexpected serendipitous avenues in your life. Reduce maladaptive coping mechanisms that doesn't make you healthily happy and is harming you. Embrace healthy coping strategies that doesn't harm you and makes you happy. Embrace healthy coping strategies that doesn't harm you and makes you happy. Gently overcome sadness and be kind to yourself like you would to your friend. Toxic positivity, balance and moderation is key here while also being authentically you and compassionately be kind to yourself. Reduce people-pleasing because even if you are being fake or being the real you, not everyone will be pleased either way, which is why it's important to stay true to you. It will lead you to serendipitous events in life that's aligned to you. Flowers still bloom regardless of each other's beauty. Have healthy self-respect, have healthy assertiveness, and healthy boundaries. Forgive yourself for self-critical thoughts. Reduce being addicted to your sorrows. Trust that it will get better. Healthily validate your emotions like you would to a friend. Optional. Try to pray to the divine, angels, compassionate spirits, and compassionate deities for guidance. Angels' guidance through your intuition. Calling from the divine and angels through your intuition. There are planets, Earth-like planets and life forms within each star in the night sky. The words poured out, each phrase a beacon guiding her back to herself. She wrote of self-respect, healthy boundaries, and the importance of embracing emotions without judgment. By the time she finished, her breathing had slowed, and the tension in her shoulders had eased. She closed the journal, holding it close for a moment as if drawing strength from its pages. "I can do this," she said aloud, her voice carrying a quiet determination. One step at a time, a small but profound shift had taken place within her. Though the uncertainty of the days ahead remained, Mallory found solace in her words and the love she carried for herself and those around her. With a deep breath, she set the journal aside and allowed herself to feel a flicker of hope for brighter days. The next morning, Harper stirred in her bed, her brows furrowing as if disturbed by a troubling dream. The pale morning light filtered through her dorm room, highlighting the unease on her face. She twisted under the covers, her discomfort growing until her eyes fluttered open, a heavy sense of disorientation gripping her. Harper bolted upright, her voice trembling as she whispered to herself, Where's Lachlan?" Her eyes darted around the room, scanning every corner as if he might appear out of thin air. Panic set in. Harper swung her legs over the bed and stood abruptly, her movements frantic as she searched the room. She checked the spaces where he might have been, behind the desk, near the window, but there was no sign of him. "Lachlan? Are you here?" she called, her voice tinged with fear. The silence was deafening, and her heart sank. Finally, the truth hit her like a freight train. Her breath hitched and she murmured, "He's gone." A mix of dread and determination crossed her face as she grabbed her phone. Her fingers moved swiftly across the screen, typing out a message to her friends. She hit send and brought the phone to her ear to leave her friends a voice note in the group chat, her voice cracking as she spoke. "Guys, emergency. Lachlan is missing. Meet me in the Uni-Quad now." The Uni-Quad was alive with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of students, but for Harper and her friends, the atmosphere felt heavy, almost oppressive. Mallory stood at the center, her face etched with concern. Jade lingered nearby, her arms crossed, glancing around nervously. Elias exuded a quiet anger, his posture rigid as he looked off into the distance, while Asher stood with his arms folded, his calm demeanor masking the tension simmering beneath the surface. Harper arrived last, sprinting toward them with tears streaming down her face. She stumbled to a halt, barely able to contain her sobs. "He's gone," she sobbed, her voice breaking. I can't find him anywhere." Mallory stepped forward immediately, wrapping Harper in a comforting embrace. "It's okay," she murmured softly, her tone steady despite the worry in her eyes. "We'll figure this out together." Harper nodded weakly, her tears slowing as she leaned into Mallory's reassurance. Jade spoke up, her voice hesitant. I checked the library and the gym. He's not there. Elias frowned, his expression dark. What about that creepy crypt we've heard rumors about? The one where weird stuff always seems to happen as we've seen. Recently, Asher nodded thoughtfully, his calm exterior giving way to determination. It's worth a shot, he said, his voice resolute. Let's go. The group exchanged glances, their shared fear and urgency binding them together. With Harper leading the way, they set off, their footsteps echoing with a growing sense of dread as they headed toward the unknown. The crypt loomed before them, its air heavy with an unspoken menace. The dim light cast eerie shadows on the stone walls, and a chilling silence hung in the space. Harper stood at the center of the group, her shoulders tense and her gaze darting around. Mallory and Jade flanked her, their expressions filled with worry. Asher and Elias kept to the edges, their body language screaming unease. Harper took a deep breath to steady herself, but the quiet only amplified the unease. Then her gaze shifted, catching sight of a figure sprawled on the floor in the adjoining chamber. Lachlan, she screamed, her voice piercing the silence as she ran toward him. The others froze, then quickly followed. Harper knelt beside Lachlan, her hands trembling as she leaned over him. Please wake up, she pleaded, her voice cracking. Don't do this to me. She pressed her hands against his chest, desperation evident in every movement. Asher crouched next to her, placing a hand on her shoulder and checking Lachlan's pulse. He's alive, he said, his voice steady but tinged with relief. He's breathing, Harper. Harper exhaled sharply, tears slipping down her cheeks. She hardly noticed as Lachlan stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Slowly, he sat up, rubbing his head as if trying to piece together his surroundings. Why am I here? He asked groggily, his voice raspy. And why does my head hurt? Harper sprang to her feet, overwhelmed with choked-back tears and a rush of relief at seeing Lachlan awake. She hurried to him, throwing her arms around him in a quick, desperate hug before stepping back. Harper crossing her arms as anger momentarily replaced her fear. You scared me half to death, that's why, she snapped. Elias chuckled dryly from the doorway. Classic Lachlan, always dramatic, even when unconscious. Lachlan scowled, attempting to stand. Dramatic? I'd call being kidnapped in my sleep something else entirely. The room went silent as his words sank in. Mallory was the first to break it, her voice trembling. This has to be the sorceress or the curse. It's a warning, isn't it? Like it's telling us we're next. Asher nodded grimly. To back off. To stop investigating the curse. Jade bit her lip, her arms crossed protectively over her chest. We're playing with fire, and it's burning us. Maybe we should stop before things get worse. Elias straightened, his expression hard. Let's get out of here. We're late for our lectures anyway. We'll regroup afterward. Lachlan groaned, glancing down at his rumpled pajamas. Yeah, sure. I'll meet you guys by the campus hallways after I change. Let's not make this day worse by being behind on our studies. The group hurried back to the uni quad, their silence broken only by the hurried crunch of gravel underfoot. The morning sun shone brightly, as if mocking the darkness they had just escaped. Harper and Mallory exchanged uneasy glances as they approached the quad. They were greeted by chaos, students fleeing in all directions, their faces pale with terror. Harper caught one by the arm as she rushed past. What's going on? She demanded, her voice sharp. Run, the student gasped. Something's in there. She didn't wait for further questions, bolting toward safety. More students followed, their frantic movements adding to the rising panic. Harper watched them go, her mind racing. She turned to Mallory, her voice low but urgent. What do they mean by something? Before Mallory could answer, another wave of fleeing students brushed past, their fear palpable. Harper squared her shoulders, determination flashing in her eyes. Whatever something was, it wasn't going to stop her. As the commotion faded into the distance, an ominous silence fell over the quad once again.